Thank you, Ellis. Thank you. Yes, I'm Misty Decker. I am Director of Product Marketing at Micro Focus. And I am not joined by Q Mangus. Q is unfortunately quite ill today. So Barbara is our hero of the hour. Thank you so much, Barbara.
That's being recorded, right? Job security, just saying.
It looks like we're going to have a good time, even though we didn't have a chance to really rehearse this together. So we'll work this out. So thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really delighted to see the audience. We are going to give you a bit of a primer with those short elevator pitches for how you can advocate for mainframe and modernization. We've seen a lot of misunderstandings with these two words. So we'll let Barbara start by talking about the misunderstandings of mainframe.
All righty. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm Barbara Ballard. I'm a senior product manager, and I sit in the host connectivity space. And what I do for a living is help customers connect to the mainframe. So that's what I do, right? Whether it's programmatically or via terminal emulation or, and the latest thing we've been doing is securing that connection. So I've been in the mainframe space for a while. I worked with Micro Focus just short of 27 years. Love what I do. And just, adding another deck to the day just is no worries. Right? Yeah. Okay, so question of the day, what do people think when they see the word mainframe? And I think maybe what you should be asking yourself, right, is not only what you think, but maybe what your friends think. Because that's really what we're here to talk about today. Right? Ooh, I like that, archaic. I have a picture like this exactly on my laptop. And the guy still works at Micro Focus. I'm sorry, it's absolutely true. His name is John Langner. He's been there for over 45 years and he's still there. So it really, that's real, right? That's not this picture, but I do have one of those. So yeah, so that kind of spells out archaic right there, doesn't it? What else do you think? What do your friends think? Yeah, my friends too. Antiquated, yep, absolutely. So, okay, so let's see what else. So this is, I'll let you read this because I'm not good at reading to you. So get yourself oriented with that. But yep, so dinosaur kind of works with what we already heard, right? Antiquated, archaic, which we all know that's not true. I mean, that's the whole problem here is that we're in the business, right? This is what we do for a living. We took migrated out of our dictionary 5-10 years ago, okay? That story's over, right? It's how to move forward. So, but that's not what the rest of the world thinks. So.
Oh, wait, I missed it. Sorry.
That's okay. Whoa, that one scared me. Okay, and
There
I don't
we
have
go.
to do that
Sorry.
slide, so she promised me I don't have to do that one slide. Okay, another cartoon. Is that really true? You guys really don't do work? Not buying that either. Not buying that either. Okay, so really kind of what we're setting the tone for here is that there's some misunderstandings, right? No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So you can think about this from a lot of ways, right? And that's kind of what we're saying here is, what do the press thinks? That's that, mainframe, really? Those are still around? Really? What does an engineer think, right? The latest thing, the coolest platform to work on, right? That's what an engineer thinks. That's why we're here, right? You want to come to a show that you pay money to attend to learn more about ZOS if it wasn't a cool platform, right? That's what we're here for. So that's understandable. I do like what the movies think, right? That's my favorite part. When my husband watches a movie and he goes, wow, they're hacking the mainframe, honey. Yeah, they are, Jack. Yeah, they are. And what app dev thinks, right? That's pretty clear. And really, at the end of the day, what it is it's pieces of all of this, right? And I think from a personal perspective, if you have a mainframe in your organization, and especially if it's your job, your job needs to be extended a little bit, right? You need to clear up the miscommunications, right? It's not going anywhere. It's just not. And so the more you help people understand that, the better off you're going to be. Okay, and she promised I didn't have to do the slide.
So I'll tell you the story behind this slide. the last share in Fort Worth, I invited Chad Rickensrud, Mark Wilson, and Michael Jordan to come and speak at Texas Christian University. And this is no lie how Chad introduced himself. He's a mainframe hacker. And I am proud to say that now that I'm at Micro Focus, I'm an MFMFer. So let's give you your elevator pitch, all right? So what are some of those words that I have used quite successfully? My record, by the way, is about 90 seconds. I took a college professor that started the conversation with mainframes are old, there's nothing new to learn. And in 90 seconds, I had him out with his phone out looking stuff up. So this is one of my favorites to start with. Mainframe is really, when you boil it down, just a server, right? I mean, just a server kind of implies it's not any better. We all know it is better, but you can start with this conversation and you get to common ground with the naysayers, right? Everything's got its pros and cons. Mainframe has its strengths, it has its weaknesses. Other servers have their strengths and weaknesses. I would not say, this one works really, really well. I would never say that the mainframe is right for every job any more than I would say that cloud is right for every job. So if you start with somebody that's saying, well, everything needs to move to cloud, you say, well, everything should be on the mainframe. They go, no, well, that's obviously ridiculous. You know, mainframe can't do everything and neither can cloud, right? So now you're using their own position against them. But this is really the best one. You can use the right tool for the job. So I can, and I have, in a pinch, hammered a nail with a screwdriver. It doesn't work great. But why would you if you have a hammer available? So I love this picture that I found on the internet. Somebody actually opened a can of cranberry sauce with a hammer and a screwdriver, right? Wouldn't it be better to have a can opener? So that's a great analogy to drive the conversation to using the right tool for the job. The other thing I really find useful is saying it's not the mainframe that's old, it's those applications on it. It's that development environment that you have typically seen in certain scenarios. But there's a lot more to the mainframe than that. Don't let your assumptions hold you back. So if you saw yesterday, I did a session called Unconscious Bias Affects Technologies as Well as People. I used the stories and the analogies in the diversity space to explain how you are predisposed to thinking certain things based on the data sets you've been fed. So by saying it that way, it takes away the emotion and you go back to looking at things unemotionally, logically, right? It's not your fault for thinking that mainframes are old. You just haven't been given the right information yet. So now you're not attacking them. You're not calling them stupid. You're saying they've made a reasonable conclusion based on the data that they were given. And so you're now helping them see a broader picture. When was the last time you actually looked at the modern mainframe? A lot has changed every single year. Give it a look. There's some really cool new things. Another thing I like to talk about is write once, deploy anywhere. And it was on the chart where people feel like they are locked in and stuck with the mainframe. The only reason the mainframe persists is because people can't move off. It's too hard. That's the only reason, right? Isn't that the myth that's out there? Well, if you're in an environment where you can write that code once and you can deploy it anywhere, like your Thanksgiving turkey, eat it over and over again, right? You're not locked into the mainframe. Those applications can and have gone anywhere. There's a good reason why they stay on the mainframe, right? On-prem has the advantage of keeping control of your data. This one is really, really compelling in today's world where everyone's worried about data privacy and access, right? Having control of your data has value. When you put your data into a public cloud, you are trusting that Amazon and Google are going to be good stewards of your crown jewels, right? There's an employee at AWS that does not work for your bank that can see your bank records. There's plenty of things that you can put in cloud. It has the advantage of unlimited scalability. You can scale on the mainframe, but it's not unlimited, right? So the cloud is a great place for those low value assets, those low value transactions. So by conceding a piece that they care about and then bringing in the unique value of the mainframe, you've now found that common ground. All right. So there are also speed advantages to having those processors close together. It's the physical distance for the electrons to move. So depending upon who you're talking to, sometimes those like deep core hardware geeks, they appreciate that. And if they're hardware geeks and they know anything about speed trading and how those traders get those millisecond advantage for those trades by having those servers physically located close to Wall Street. If you know that story, anybody? Okay. That is a great analogy to why there's a speed advantage of using this hardware. COBOL gets a bad rap. It is pervasive. We just released a survey. We did a big, massive survey of COBOL. Thank you to all of you who took that survey. We appreciate it. And the results are 800 billion lines of code. That is more than the stars in the entire galaxy. Okay, that's how much COBOL is out there. The last survey, I think they said it was 300 billion, something like that. It's a significant increase. And the naysayers, well, nobody's writing new applications in COBOL, right? No, probably not. But you know what? These applications need to continue to evolve, okay? But you don't hear about COBOL all the time. You don't hear about developers wanting to grow up to be COBOL developers because those applications work. They just work. If they didn't work, those companies would have replaced that COBOL code a long, long time ago. Proof positive right there. COBOL's old, antiquated, it's unstable, you can't do anything with it. New Jersey governor, right? You know the New Jersey governor who said the reason they couldn't pay unemployment claims was because of cobalt, right? It's not the language. The language is just a tool, right? You can write bad applications in .NET. It's not that hard to write bad code. It's not the problem of the tool. So a house built out of wood, a good house built out of wood is still a great house, right? A bad house built out of the latest materials is still a bad house. It has nothing to do with the material you built out of it. The size of this code, it's completely impractical to replace it all. Do the math. How long and how many programmers would it take to replace 800 billion lines of code? And you could argue that Java or C is more compact because COBOL is famously verbose. But even half of that's 400 billion. It's ridiculous, right? It would take forever. And it can do all of the new things as well, right? You can use new IDEs, VS Code, right? APIs, you can do APIs into COBOL applications. You can do microservices with COBOL applications. And in fact, that's one of the things we at Micro Focus do is we help customers modernize those COBOL applications to better suit the needs of their current environment. So any questions on how you explain mainframe before we move on to modernization? Of course you have the first question, Svi. Okay.
It's given that it's for business applications, somebody who's a line of business analyst, who's not a programmer, who's a COBOL program, and no one's supposed to do it. I would challenge that line of business analyst to look at a well-written Java class and know what it does.
Correct. So Svi's point is that COBOL is ultimately readable. It's understandable. Anyone can understand that COBOL code, which makes it easier for people to pick up a new COBOL application. Fair point. Are we ready for modernization? Yes, the other M word. Shh, don't say it. All right, Barbara, you're up.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. Modernization. All right, we're back to kind of questions and answers here, making you think a little bit. So what do people think when they see the word modernization? I'm really interested in what you guys think, not what your friends think, really. I want to know what you think, okay? Yes, sir. I think that is absolutely fair. I think that is, I don't think it's right, but I think that's absolutely what people think.
And
So-
River has a back behind the
Oh,
post.
thank you.
I love you.
You're Misty's new best friend, so
See,
watch
actually,
out. Yeah.
we became best friends yesterday. Hi, River.
It is. So if you didn't hear that answer, modernization to her represents opportunity. How cool is that? Right? How cool is that? Anybody else got any thoughts there? All right. Well, just like the last time, we're going to take a journey through what other people might think. So, modernization, right? So we already heard that, right? A mainframer thinks we're moving. Right? Hold on. We're going. Okay. And nobody wants to go, right? I mean, no matter what platform you're on, you don't want it moved to another platform. What a cloud provider thinks, yep, it's all coming here. And I have to tell you, I talk to customers every day. That's my job, right? And all my customers have cloud visions. All of them do, right? They better, because that is the new world order. But like Misty said, it doesn't all have to go. The right things have to go, right? Let's talk about email, right? We all do email, probably more than we want to. And that was a great application to take to the cloud. That's why Microsoft is successful with Office 365, right? That makes sense. But it doesn't necessarily make sense for an application sitting on the mainframe that works every day and does what it's supposed to do, offers the business value, for that to be picked up and moved to the cloud. It doesn't always make sense. So what an SI thinks. Well, rewrite, that's what modernization means. I'm going to come in and rewrite. That doesn't always make sense either. In fact, oftentimes it actually ends up kind of worse than one wanted, right? You don't get it rewritten and then it doesn't offer the same value, may not even work. There's just lots of complication. Project goes longer than you wanted. So there's just lots of complications there. What a CEO thinks, right? No way. It's impossible. You can't modernize. Nope, not when we're talking about the mainframe, right? So oftentimes, I won't say that's always what a CEO thinks, because I think it depends on how in tune they are with the people that work for them, right? I think somebody that is attuned to what the mainframe does and knows the business value that it offers may not necessarily think it's impossible. I think the CFO often thinks it's too expensive, right? I think that's their job. I think they think everything's too expensive. I think that's their job, right? So this doesn't surprise me. And actually what it is a piece of, I wouldn't say all of these, because I don't think that's fair, but I think it's a piece of some of these, depends on what organization you're sitting in and how the mainframe works in your organization today and what your journey is going forward, right? I think, and it also depends, I think, on the industry that you're in. But I think what's important here is that it is not that the mainframe has to be replaced in order to modernize. I think that's what's key. And that's what we're trying to talk about, so that you can actually use both words in the same sentence and not offend anybody. Yes, sir.
I have two thoughts from online. One is applying new practices and opening up the mainframe and integrating it more with other.
Wow. And that's wonderful, right? Because those are,
Alice, could you turn your mic on, please?
Or hold it closer.
so we'll get you to repeat those because it was great.
Okay. Two thoughts from the online. One was applying new practices to manage the platform. And the other was opening up, opening up the mainframe to integrate more with other platforms.
So those are great thoughts, right? That's why we're here today, is we want people to understand that you can use mainframe and modernization in the same sentence. We can all succeed, right? We're all in the business to do this and to take it forward. It doesn't have to be one or the other. So what is mainframe modernization, right? We kind of talked about modernization in general, right? It It doesn't have to be completely moving to the cloud, right? There may be mainframe applications that are actually suited better for the cloud. I say may because, again, it depends on your industry, your business, and what you do with the mainframe. But there could be. I think we all have to be open to that. It could mean rewriting in Java. Adding REST APIs is key to moving forward, right? I think that's what the person from the online added is, right, opening up the mainframe to be integrated with the rest of the enterprise. Refactoring into microservices, that's how the cloud operates. It's all about microservices, right? Doesn't mean moving off. And then adding modern interfaces. I know when I talk, because I talk from an access perspective, because that's what I'm a pseudo expert in, if you will. But what I talk about is, lots of people use desktop emulators, right? But kind of everybody expects a web app today, right? I want to do it from my phone. So opening up to new interfaces is a great way to modernize without changing the back end. And then new toolkits like Kubernetes, right? Kubernetes is if you don't know, I would think most of you do, but it's an orchestration tool where you can manage your applications in the cloud for better scalability, automatic healing, and all of those types of goodnesses, right? And then participate in DevOps, right? No doubt, those are ways that we can modernize the mainframe, but it doesn't necessarily mean moving it to the cloud.
All right, so let's jump into the elevator pitch here. So the first thing I want to point out is if you want a really good elevator pitch for modernization of mainframes, this book, Kill It with Fire. I absolutely adore this book. It has been an obsession of mine for over a year, and we are giving away a few copies in our booth. This is the author, Marianne Bellotti. She has a history as a sociologist before she turned to tech. And then she spent years modernizing government systems, like the worst of the worst. And she wrote the book about it. And it's very readable. And what I really like about what she does is she combines those social motivations, those organizational structure influences that affect technical decisions. You think that they're independent, but she makes some really, really great points. She likes to talk about modernization. She hates the word. She uses it because that's the word everybody else is using. But the word itself includes the word modern, implying new. Is that what we're trying to do? We're trying to use everything that's new? No. What we're trying to do is restore the system to operational excellence. We just want what we have to deliver what the business actually needs. That's what modernization really is. If you're to come with one big overarching statement, that is what modernization, by the definition, really is. All of that other stuff is ways of doing that, right? You want your systems to deliver what the business needs. Those are the words that you can use in your organization when somebody comes at you with, we've got a modernization project, we're going to move everything off the mainframe. Your answer is, what's the business need? We just need the systems to deliver what the business needs, right? And I love this quote of hers on her website. Secretly, all software development is legacy modernization. You can totally blow somebody's mind with that one. The second you put that .NET application into production, it is now legacy. It's legacy of a minute old, but it is legacy, and it's got to be maintained. It's got to be modernized. It's got to adapt to the changing environment. All software development is legacy modernization. So go ahead and challenge that assumption that anything new is automatically better, right? And you can pull some of those analogies I gave you earlier. Give them this book. If we could get every CIO and CTO to read this book, all of our lives would be so much better. If you can't tell, I absolutely love this book. So let's really start with that business need. This is the secret sauce to having those modernization conversations, right there. Business needs. These are examples of business needs. We need to be more flexible to the changing environment. We're in a very fast-moving industry, and we need to be able to adapt quickly. We need to deliver new functions much faster than we have been. That's a business need. We need to reduce costs, right? I will tell you, a lot of the migrations to cloud were motivated initially by cost reduction. That is not what's happening right now, because Micro Focus gets called in all the time. And they say, we want to save costs, right? But now what we're hearing is we want to deliver, we want to be more adaptable, and we want to deliver faster, because they just lived through a pandemic where they had to transition everything all overnight. Now they know how vulnerable they are when they have these long development times, right? We do still hear skills. We want to modernize because we can't hire COBOL programmers, right? That is a valid business need. When you start with that business need, you might decide, you know what, you don't have a lot of COBOL in your environment. Yes, you should rewrite those COBOL applications so that you can hire developers that can work across your enterprise. But if you've got a lot of COBOL, the answer to your skills issue might be cross-training. Imagine that, right? And the business need might be specific new features that you're trying to deliver, like analytics, right? We want to have the ability to do, analyze our customer data and do specific targeted marketing campaigns. Not a business need. This one drives us crazy in Micro Focus because it happens all the time. Because it is true, we do have a reputation in industry as being the company that moves everybody off the mainframe. And that is indeed part of our business. But that is not our business. Our business is helping those systems deliver what the business needs. So when we get called in, the first question we ask is, what is your business need? And the answer often is, our strategy is to move to cloud. And we go, that's not a business need. What is your business need? No, cloud is the business need. No, tell me what that is going to deliver to your business. And let's figure out what the minimum change is necessary to get to that value you need your IT systems to deliver to your business. Containers, not a business need. Microservices, not a business need. Another lesson I learned from Marianne in my favorite book, I wish I got commissions on this thing. She pointed out that engineers are rewarded career-wise for being the first, for implementing something new. That's where you get your social prestige, right? So even the well-intentioned ones will be predisposed unconsciously to be drawn to, well, the only solution for this is microservices. There are lots of examples of where microservices are indeed a really bad idea, because you have to encapsulate the data and you have to restructure all of your data, and there's sometimes some performance impacts based on what the application is, all right? So start with the business need. Keep in mind that unconscious bias. Alice, what was the question?
Exactly what parts of an application or business in general would run better on a mainframe Z cloud compared to running on an x86 cloud? Can you give us some examples?
Yes, my favorite example of financial transactions, things that need to happen high speed, highly secure, run really, really well on a mainframe. Low value transactions, things that happen all over, like in little bits and pieces all over and don't need to be centrally organized, are really great for cloud. So checking your bank balance is a great example. Another example of mainframe versus cloud is we have a major bank working with us. And because of the changing regulations in various countries, they have to host the customer data and the applications that process that data in the country. So in their major markets, they have mainframe data centers set up. In their lower value minor markets, they have the exact same application running in a local instance in a local cloud, rather than spending the money to stand up an entire data center for a small number of customers. So that's what I meant by write once, deploy anywhere. Our technology lets you do that. You can write it once and deploy it on the mainframe in your high value environments and you can deploy the exact same application in your low value markets. I think I addressed that one. All right. So I thought this was really useful. So this is a micro-focused modernization maturity model. But I found it really useful to guide conversations. And we try carefully to teach this, but we find that people look at this and they misunderstand what we're trying to say here, because it kind of looks like level 1 to level 5. So I changed the word to stage. I don't know. It's hard to say. It's really a mix and match kind of thing. So this is meant to be like circle where you're at now. Oh, wait, I have a little laser. Circle, we're here in distributed with an agile development process, and we're portable, virtualized. And where we'd like to get to is cloud ready DevOps, right? So it's meant to guide that conversation. I use that microservices, where is it? Microservices example as a great way of driving home that point, that the goal is not to get to level 5 for everything. The goal is to look at the map and try to help you plan out what is the right thing for that business need. Most modernization we see comes in one of 3 categories. It's application modernization, process modernization, or infrastructure, right? So those top 3 layers. But really, most modernization is going to have a little bit of all 5 of those layers. It's going to impact your culture when you need to move from an iterative development process to agile. It's going to impact your culture. It's going to impact how you manage your organization. All right. There may be application changes you need to make in order to support that. There may be infrastructure changes you need to make in order to support that. By infrastructure, I don't necessarily mean moving off the mainframe. It could be what you have in your mainframe, right? So it's a mix and match kind of thing, right? So the goal is not getting to stage 5. The goal is getting back to operational excellence, right? Next tip for you. Modernization really should not be one giant project. It's a really, really bad idea. It should be lots of little small projects that build on each other. And we had, this is a Standish research. I should have given them credit on here. Sorry, Standish. Standish Research did this based on, I think it was 5,000, oh, it says down there, 50,000 projects, okay? And they found some traits of the projects that were successful, the projects that struggled, and the projects that failed. And you'll see down here, you get to 71% success rate when you do what they call flow-like modernization. And that is where it's basically modernization in an agile way, right? So you have a small project that will deliver value, okay? So big projects are hard to sell. We'd like you to spend $20 million to modernize this project, and you won't see any value on this for 3 years. That's really hard to sell in a business. That's a massive risk that the business is taking to undertake that project. And we know that that is very likely to fail. So start small with individual projects that can show value along the way. Project value builds confidence. Next project value builds confidence, and iterate. All right, starting over. We hear a lot, oh, we'll just rewrite everything, or we'll just use off-the-shelf software, right? So I love using this analogy of those existing applications represent a business investment, just like you purchased a house. You spent money on that. There is residual value in it. You've spent money on those applications. There is value in that, okay? So why would I tear that entire house down if I just wanted to remodel the kitchen? The kitchen isn't working for me. I need it to be a little bit different. So I'm going to tear down the whole house and rebuild it almost exactly the same with only the kitchen different, with a different construction material. That sounds like a good plan. All right, my next favorite myth to dispel And this one I have so much fun with. COBOL is hard to learn. Oh, COBOL is so hard. COBOL, as it was pointed out earlier, was created specifically so that anyone could read it and understand it. So it was literally accountants and secretaries that wrote those earliest COBOL programs. So this is a fun one to point out when you have some hot shots programmer saying, oh, I can't do COBOL, it's too complicated. Oh yeah, so you're not smarter than a secretary or an accountant from the 60s, right? If they can do it, certainly you can. I'll throw in a little bit of history that I learned from Kill It With Fire. I should be Vanna White, Kill It With Fire. Marianne pointed out in one of these chapters, the history of programming languages. It was really fascinating. She said in the earliest days of programming, there were 3 different families of languages. There was the Fortran family, which is all scientific calculations. There's the COBOL family, which was written specifically for business applications. And then there was RPG, which is the mother of C and Java and everything else. And that came out of research in universities. There was no practical application for that language other than studying computer science. How in the world did the language that came out of research without any practical plans for it when it started end up becoming the predominant thread that all the future languages came from? Any guesses? Any guesses? It has to do with the gender of the woman on the screen. Okay, so COBOL was the domain of women, and it was seen as low value. It was a secretarial job. It was like typing up letters. You're programming the computer, you're programming the mainframe. But research was a prestigious job and the job of men. And then when programming became important to businesses, the men said, well, now it's our job. And they pushed the women out. I'm sorry, it's just history, okay?
She doesn't have an opinion at all. Just saying.
So it's very unfortunate what happened back in the 60s. And we are living today with the history of that endemic in everything that we do every day. Programming languages are a gatekeeper. It blew my mind. I told you, sociology mixed with technology in this book. You cannot easily take a person off the street and turn them into a programmer with most of the popular languages today. You have to learn programming. And that in and of itself, not on purpose, but that's what happened, has gated access to the jobs that we all enjoy. COBOL was originally created to counter that. It was meant to be for everyone. Svi, go ahead.
Yes. All these other sexy languages. People came out of university and said, I want a sexy language.
Mm-hmm. That is exactly what I'm saying. Svi says, since universities were using sexy languages, which I will not go there, I think it's sexier to be accessible to the world. Okay? So he's saying that since that's what they learned in university, that's what they wanted to do when they hit the workforce. And that is absolutely true. So in my talk yesterday, we talked about unconscious bias affects technologies as well as people. And the way unconscious bias works, if you are not familiar with it, your brain is trained on the data set you are exposed to. And I draw the analogy with Twitter's photo algorithm. Did you ever hear about how Twitter was biased to crop the photos to highlight the white faces and cut out the black faces? And do you know why that happened? They trained the data set on primarily white faces. So the algorithm learned to recognize white faces. You cannot say that an algorithm grew up with bad parents, is inherently evil, right? Unconscious bias happens the same way in our brains. We are not inherently evil. Our brains are physically structured to form opinions based on the data sets we're fed, okay? And since we don't see enough women in technical jobs, our brains are automatically unconsciously biased. And since we as mainframers may not interact so much with people that are like all .NET-y or whatever, we have an unconscious bias against all of those flashy people. I have one. I roll my eyes at them, all right? Because that's the data set that I've been fed. So the same goes with the programming languages, right? You are going to automatically be predisposed to languages that look like what you've learned before. And that's the biggest issue we have with COBOL. It looks different. All right. There is not a single path. It's not one path for modernization. This is really, really important when you're countering those myths in your organization. Because somebody is going to come to you and say, well, modernization equals getting off the mainframe. I'm going to point to you all day. All right. So, and you can say, now that you've heard this talk, right? What are you going to say? There's not one path to modernization. There's a lot of different options. It comes down to restoring. Thank you, Svi. You're paying attention. We'll give you a candy here. All right. Oops, I'll get it to you later. All right. So there are different paths for different companies. This is when you say there's different paths for your modernization journey. This is where most people come. All right, so one company is going to do moving everything off the mainframe, and another company is going to do modernizing in place. Yes, there's some of that, but it's really more about many different paths within that company for different applications. You might move one thing to cloud. You might keep something else on the mainframe. You might move one thing to DevOps and another application that never, ever, ever needs to be updated. Why are you investing in moving it to DevOps? If it's running just fine, so what if it's left there in a waterfall development process? If that is delivering what the business needs, don't touch it, right? So here we are at the end of my cheat sheet for you for modernization. Yesterday I mentioned this is part of a series here at Share this week. Yesterday was unconscious bias affects technologies as well as people. Today you learned those keywords to open the conversation. So now you have a conversation going. Now what? Well, tomorrow we're going to talk about finding modernization common ground. How do you get those people on the other side of the fence? And I'm going to use quotes because it shouldn't be those people on the other side of the fence. It should be your entire company operating together, rallying to, returning to operational excellence, okay? And in rallying all of them, that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow, is how you practically go about getting that done. Of course, it starts with my favorite book. All right, so I'll open it up for questions. Please fill out your evaluation. Give us great marks, especially Barbara, who stepped in at the last second.
Tried to grow a beard, but it didn't work. So,
Any questions? Any questions?
Sorry.
No sorries at all, please.
So it's less of a question, more of a comment that I'd love to get your thoughts on. And because of it's related to unconscious bias, I think. I think we maybe sometimes make a bit of a mistake when we engage in the false dichotomy of mainframe versus design.
Mm-hmm.
I know that as you said, it's an abbreviated version of Share this week. Normally there's Linux and VM concept. I'm a VM guy, so.
Sorry, dude.
Come to the VM workshop, everyone. So, because I don't think it's true in every circumstance, but mainframe can behave like a hyperscaler sometimes.
Yep.
It's not true for everyone. I mean, your example of just like a fantasy-based work, that's where the hyperscaler provides really good for
Right.
again, that was a way of convincing those people like electronic proximity, where we were like, we're exploiting our mainframe architecture to service our traditional applications with very modern applications in the DevOps toolchain
Right.
that runs in close proximity to that traditional workflow. So I think that, again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on whether that's kind of like there's a Venn diagram between mainframe and cloud rather than
I think that you just listened to my entire talk accurately and did a very good job. So Gerald's point was, I'm going to do the best I can to sum up because you said a whole lot of stuff, that there's times for something to be in the mainframe, there's times to be something on cloud, but there's a Venn diagram where it's mainframe and cloud. And there's a lot that the mainframe can do to act like a hyperscaler, and you can do some of those cloud-like things on a mainframe, right?
I'd like to add to that though, because I think you didn't say the words, but at least my take on what you just said was starting with the business need.
Yeah.
You understood what the business needed, and then you chose the right platform to support it, or the various technologies on those platforms,
Mhm.
right? So that,
and exploiting what you already have. There are plenty of shops that an IFL got thrown in when they did their last mainframe refresh.
Yep.
So why
Right.
not use existing resources that you've got
Yep.
and leverage those resources for a distributed Linux app on Linux on C? Very comfortable. Almost used really crude.
Yes, we'll avoid those crude analogies and just leave it at the MFR. Okay, so
other slide.
yes, good point. Any other questions? Nope. All right, so we're here, I'd say all week, but I guess that's 2 days. And we have a booth, and in our booth, there's a fun little game. You can pick a prize, and there's not a whole lot of these books left, but I'm pretty sure there's a few of them left. And if you aren't lucky enough to get one of these books, buy it. It's great. Okay, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.